He talks a lot. Um, yep. Continuing from Job 29. Zaza, look. Say this. Say, Job, continue to speak. He said, how I long for the times when things were better. That's when God watched over me. The light of his lamp shone on me. I walked through darkness by his light. Those were the best days of my life. That's when God's friendship blessed my house. The mighty one was still with me. My children were all around me. The path in front of me was like sweet cream. It was as if the rock poured out olive oil for me. In those days, I went to the city gate. I took my seat as a member of the council. Young people who saw me stepped to one side. Old people stood up as I approached. The leaders stopped speaking. They covered their mouths with their hands. The voices of the nobles became quiet. Their tongues stuck to the roofs of their mouths. Everyone who heard me said good things about me. Those who saw me honored me. That's because I saved poor people who cried out for help. I saved helpless children whose fathers had died. Those who were dying gave me their blessing. I made the hearts of the widow sing. I put on a godly life as if it were my clothes. Fairness was my robe and my turban. I was like eyes for those who were blind. I was like feet for those who couldn't walk. I stood up for strangers in court. Sinners are like animals. They have powerful teeth, but I took from their mouths the people they had caught. I thought, I'll die in my own house. The days of my life will be as many as the grains of sand. My roots will reach down to the water. The dew will lie all night on my branches. I will remain healthy and strong. My bow will stay as good as new in my hand. People wanted to hear what I had to say. They waited silently for the advice I gave them. After I had spoken, they didn't speak anymore. My words fell gently on their ears. They waited for me just as they would wait for rain showers. They drank my words just as they would drink the spring rain. Then I smiled at them. They could hardly believe it. The light of my face lifted their spirits. I chose the way they should go. I sat as their chief. I lived as a king lives amongst his troops. I was like someone who comforts those who are sad.
Now, we felt the same when I'm talking about wish I'd died.
Yeah. Yeah.
Was he kind of being a little contradictory there?
I never
As
assumed.
much as he wailed and lamented what he was suffering through, he was an example.
It definitely sounds like he's patting himself on the back. In a big.
But patting himself, but not being honest at the same time. Like he was complaining.
That he wished he had never lived.
Yeah.
Yeah. He was complaining that same person complaining he wished he never lived.
But everybody wishing they could be him. According to him, right
that's
there.
how he sees it, yeah. Or that's how he saw it. I don't know. There's still some more he got to say. He had a lot to say about how he helped the poor, had a lot to say about how he helped the helpless. He spoke up for people, saw and helped them see.
Turn around.
Pretty
in between complaining.
Well, this is after the complaints. We're seeing where he's going next.
Sound boastful.
Huh?
Sound boastful.
Yeah, it sounded really boastful to me too. It's hard to not say he's not being boastful right now. Even if it were true, it's hard to not say that that's not being boastful.
It felt like he was living in righteousness.
Mm. When Paul said something similar to this, he did it in a way to semi-boast too, but to help people see something. Because Paul did something similar to this. He said he was whipped with 39 lashes. He was shipwrecked. But it's not the same type of boastfulness as Paul saying, I spoke to these. Yeah, it's actually way different. Because Paul wasn't going around saying, I spoke to these many people and told them about Jesus. And then I went here and told them about Jesus. He wasn't speaking like that when Paul did it. Paul was talking about the suffering, like the things you wouldn't want to bring up, the undelightful things he went through or he's been through to reveal to who he was writing to as he's paid the price to be where God has him, I guess you could say, for Paul. Because at who Paul wrote to, there was a group of people who were following these, you could say, how do we say it nowadays? Name it and claim it preachers, you could say. Even back then during Jesus' time. Right after Jesus' time. So there was this group of believers that Paul had ministered the gospel to. They received the gospel, received Jesus as Savior. When Paul left to continue preaching the gospel, some other people came in calling themselves like apostles as well, but almost like in the sense of greater than Paul and greater than Peter, like calling themselves super apostles. And so the people who Paul had spoke to started listening to these new men who considered themselves super apostles. Paul used that term, these so-called super apostles.
And called them super apostles?
So-called, yeah. Like,
but they use it. I mean, that's the way it translates.
That's how it translates. Like patronizing them, like these people who you're now following, who's pretty much using you for your resources. And he's trying to write to them to show them, like, look, like, wake up. Like, these people are using you for your resources. They are not these great people that you think they are to have you follow them. And if you think I'm nothing, let me talk about what I went through for the gospel, in a sense. And he breaks that down. That's the only other time I can think about. I know there's other people in the Bible who spoke prideful, of course, but I'm thinking from the aspect of this is supposed to be a godly example. I never read it like this the first time. Job being like this. Job proclaiming his good deeds this way. I can understand where some of the anger could come from now, because when he spoke about sometimes when Job would speak, it would sound like it's in anger. Without this, we could assume he was just a fully humble guy, and it's just bad things just happened to him. But now from reading this, not saying he's not humble neither, but you ain't as humble as I thought if you're bringing up your own greatness, or what you used to do. The Bible itself says that a wise person lets other people speak about how wise they are, essentially. A wise person doesn't go around trying to convince and proclaim and boast of how wise they are. Other people do that for them. And so a wise person doesn't need to. So with Job saying this, it's like, all right, Job, like, I didn't remember you being like this, but some more clarity to his character. Job 30. But now those who are younger than I am make fun of me. I wouldn't even put their parents with my sheepdogs. Their strong hands couldn't give me any help. That's because their strength was gone. They were weak because they were needy and hungry. They wandered through dry and empty deserts all night. Zaza! Shh. They wandered through dry and empty deserts all night. Among the bushes, they gathered salty plants. They ate the roots of desert bushes. They were driven away from human society. They were shouted at as if they were robbers. They were forced to live in dry steam beds. They had to stay among rocks and in holes in the ground. Like donkeys, they cried out among the bushes. There they crowded together and hid. They were so foolish that no one respected them. They were driven out of the land. Now their children laughed at me. They make fun of me with their songs. They hate me.
Amir.
They stay away from me.
Amir.
They even dare to spit in my face. God has made my body weak. It's like a tent that has fallen down. So those children do what they want in front of me. Many people attack me on my right side. They lay traps for my feet. They come at me from every direction. They tear up the road I walk on. They succeed in destroying me. They say, no one can help them. They attack me like troops, smashing through a wall. Among the destroyed buildings, they come rolling in. Terrorists sweep over me. My honor is driven away as if by the wind. My safety vanishes like a cloud. Now my life is slipping away. Days of suffering grab hold of me. At night, my bones hurt. My aches and pains never stop. God's great power becomes like clothes to me. He chokes me like the neck of my shirt. He throws me down into the mud. I'm nothing but dust and ashes. God, I cry out to you, but you don't answer me. I stand up, but all you do is look at me. You do mean things to me. You attack me with your mighty power. You pick me up and blow me away with the wind. You toss me around with the storm. I know that you will bring me down to death. That's what you have appointed for everyone. No one would crush people. No one would crush people. When they cry out for help in their trouble. Sorry, I read that wrong. No one would crush people when they cry out for help in their trouble. Haven't I wept for those who are in trouble? Haven't I felt sorry for poor people? I hoped good things would happen, but something evil came. I looked for light, but all I saw was darkness. My insides are always churning. Nothing but days of suffering are ahead of me. My skin has become dark, but the sun didn't do it. I stand up in a community and cry out for help. I've become a brother to wild dogs. Owls are my companions. My skin grows black and peels. My body burns with fever. My lyre is turned to sadness. My flute makes a sound like weeping. So it goes from boasting for what he did for people to people and the children of those people treating him badly to sadness and depression again. Interesting. Question statements?
So to get this straight, he only lost one family and one fortune. Not cursing the Lord.
7 children and maybe 3 or 4 means of income.
Ronnie lost 7 families. 7 family members.
Yeah.
I heard it. Was okay.
Yeah, 7
Different
children.
ways to make income.
Yeah. Stolen or killed. That's what makes sense to me now when it says that people have surrounded me. Every time he says that, I'm like, what army is around him? But I'm thinking more so in the aspect of those who came and stole his flocks. It's like an army came up against him. He feels like he's talking like all these people came up against him to steal this flock and then steal this group and then kill this group and then do this and then like he's in wartime. That's what happened in wartime, especially back then. You kill off whoever you're fighting and you take all their stuff. Pillage.
Keep what you feel.
Mm-hmm. So, Job 31. This is a good one. I have made an agreement with my eyes. I promise not to look at a young woman with impure thoughts. What do we receive from God above? What do we get from the mighty one in heaven? Sinful people are destroyed. Trouble comes to those who do what is wrong. Doesn't God see how I live? Doesn't he count every step I take? I haven't told any lies. My feet haven't hurried to cheat others. So let God weigh me in honest scales. Then he'll know I haven't done anything wrong. Suppose my steps have turned away from the right path. Suppose my heart has wanted what my eyes have seen. Or suppose my hands have become unclean. Then may others eat what I have planted. May my crops be pulled up by the roots. Suppose my heart has been tempted by a woman. Or suppose I've prowled around my neighbor's home. Then may my wife grind another man's grain. May other men sleep with her. Wanting another woman would have been an evil thing. It would have been a sin that should be judged. It's like a fire that burns down to the grave. It would have caused my crops to be pulled up by the roots. Suppose I haven't treated any of my male and female servants fairly when they've brought charges against me. Then what will I do when God opposes me? What answer will I give him when he asks me to explain myself? Didn't he who made me make my servants also? Didn't the same God form us inside our mothers? I haven't said no to what poorer people have wanted. I haven't let widows lose their hope. I haven't kept my bread to myself. I've shared it with children whose fathers had died. From the time I was young, I've helped those widows. I've raised those children as a father would. Suppose I've seen people dying because they didn't have enough clothes. I've seen needy people who didn't have enough to keep warm, and they didn't give me their blessing when I warmed them with wool for my sheep. Suppose I raise my hand against children whose fathers have died, and I did it because I knew I had power in the courts. Then let my arm fall off from my shoulder. Let it be broken off at the joint. I was afraid God would destroy me. His glory terrifies me, so I'd never do things like that. Suppose I put my trust in gold. I've said to pure gold, you make me feel secure, and I'm happy because I'm so wealthy. I'm glad because my hands have earned so much. Suppose I've worshipped the sun in all its glory and have bowed down to the moon in all its beauty. My heart has been secretly tempted. My hand has thrown kisses to the sun and moon. Then these things would have been sins that should be judged, and I wouldn't have been faithful to God in heaven. I wasn't happy when hard times came to my enemies. I didn't enjoy seeing the trouble they had. I didn't allow my mouth to sin by asking for bad things to happen to them. The workers in my house always said, Job always gives plenty of food to everyone. No stranger ever had to spend the night in the street. My door was always open to travelers. I didn't hide my sin as other people do. I didn't hide my guilt in my heart. I was never afraid of the crowd. I never worried that my relatives might hate me. I didn't have to keep quiet or stay inside. I wish someone would listen to me. I'm signing my name on everything I've said. I hope the mighty one will give me his answer. I hope the one who brings charges against me will write them down. I'll wear them on my shoulder. I'll put them on my head like a crown. I'll give that person a report of every step I take. I'll present it to him like I would to a ruler. Suppose my land cries out against me, and all its soil is wet with tears. Suppose I've used up its crops without paying for them, or I've broken the spirit of its renters. Then let the thorns grow instead of wheat. Let stinkweed come up instead of barley. The words of Job end here, says the book of Job.
Let me see that.
Suppose.
So you're reading what God says?
Okay, put it down.
Yeah, I'm gonna get that.
Yeah, thank you.
You saving these or throwing them out?
Throwing them out essentially.
Did God say, have you tried my faithful servant Job from the beginning, or do you try my servant?
Let's see. I think that's Job 1 and 2, right? Because Job 1, he sends him back again. Let's see. It says, well, let me just go back on the actual thing.
Job 1. Guys, that's a Job 1.
Have you thought about my servant Job? There's none like him in all the earth. And the second time,
Job 2.
yep, have you considered my servant Job? Have you thought about my servant Job? So he didn't say faithful, just said servant.
That's just Job 1.
Maybe that's why I got it confused, because when I think about Job's friends, I think about 3 friends, but there's 4 friends. And Zophar did speak one time, but maybe it was Elihu I thought was the right sounding one. Because I already see in the second verse, he was angry with Job. That's because Job said he was right instead of God. Let us continue. Elihu. Alright. Elihu. So the 3 men stopped answering Job because he thought he was right. But Elihu, the Buzite, was very angry with Job. That's because Job said he himself was right instead of God. Elihu was the son of Barachel. He was from the family of Ram. Elihu was also very angry with Job's 3 friends. They hadn't found any way to prove that Job was wrong, but they still said he was guilty. Elihu had waited before he spoke to Job. That's because the others were older than he was. But he saw that the 3 men didn't have anything more to say, so he was very angry. Elihu, the Buzite, the son of Barachel, said, I'm young and you are old. So I was afraid to tell you what I know. I thought those who are older should speak first. Those who have lived for many years should teach people how to be wise. But the Spirit in people gives them understanding. The breath of the Mighty One gives them wisdom. Older people aren't the only ones who are wise. They aren't the only ones who understand what is right. So I'm saying you should listen to me. I'll tell you what I know. I waited while you men spoke. I listened to your reasoning. While you were searching for words, I paid close attention to you. But not one of you has proved that Job is wrong. None of you has answered his arguments. Don't claim we have enough wisdom to answer Job. Let God, not mere man, prove that he's wrong. Job hasn't directed his words against me. I won't answer him with your arguments. Job, these men are afraid. They don't have anything else to say. They've run out of words. Do I have to keep on waiting now that they are silent? They are just standing there with nothing to say. I too have something to say. I too will tell what I know. I am full of words. My spirit inside me forces me to speak. Inside I'm like wine that is bottled up. I'm like new wineskins ready to burst. I must speak so I can feel better. I must open my mouth and reply. I'll treat everyone the same. I won't praise anyone without meaning it. If I weren't honest when I praise people, my Maker would soon take me from this life.
he still talking in the next one?
It's the Elihu, yeah.
But how long does he talk? How many?
Maybe 3 or 4 chapters.
The only reason I ask is because I find sometimes in listening to this, they repeat themselves in different ways over and over again, saying the same thing.
But isn't it just like real people?
I don't know, might be me sometimes too, but I was just like,
You have
you
to
know.
wait.
The Lord speaks in 38.
You're not getting one.
Okay. Right, go ahead.
You're not getting one.
So, vote. Do we want to hear what Elihu has to say, or do we want to get straight to what God has to say? Because I wasn't planning on doing a character study of Elihu. It was just the first 3.
Well, he's the youngest one. It goes to how youthful people think nowadays. So go ahead.
You can tell he sounds nervous too. He just said, listen to me, right? Now let's continue. Job, listen now to my words. Pay attention to everything I say. I'm about to open my mouth. My words are on the tip of my tongue. What I say comes from an honest heart. My lips speak only what I know is true. The Spirit of God has made me. The breath of the Mighty One gives me life. So answer me if you can. Stand up and argue your case in front of me. To God, I'm just the same as you. I too am a piece of clay. You don't have to be afraid of me. My hand won't be too heavy on you. But I heard what you said, and here are the exact words I heard. You said, I am pure. I have done no wrong. I'm clean. I'm free from sin. But God has found fault with me. He thinks I'm his enemy. He puts my feet in chains. He watches every step I take. But I'm telling you that you aren't right when you talk like that. After all, God is greater than any human being. Why do you claim that God never answers anybody's questions? He speaks in one way and then another. But we do not even realize it. He might speak in a dream or in a vision at night. That's when people are sound asleep in their beds. He might speak in their ears. His warnings might terrify them. He warns them in order to turn them away from sinning. He wants to keep them from being proud. He wants to stop them from going down into the grave. He doesn't want them to be killed by swords. Someone might be punished by suffering in bed. The pain in their bodies might never go away. They might feel so bad they can't eat anything. They might even hate the finest foods. Their body might waste away to nothing. Their bones might have been hidden, but now they stick out. They might approach the very edge of the grave. The messengers of death might come for them. But suppose there is an angel who will speak up for him. The angel is very special. He's 1 out of 1,000. He will tell that person how to do what is right. The angel will be gracious to them. He'll say to God, spare them from going down into the grave. I know a way that can set them free. Then their body is made like new again. They become as strong and healthy as when they were young. Then that person can pray to God and be pleased by him. They will see God. Then that person will pray to God and be blessed by him. They will see God's face and shout for joy. God will make them well and happy again. Then that person will come to others and say, I sinned. I made what is wrong appear to be right, but I wasn't punished as I should have been. God has set me free. He has kept me from going down into the darkness of the grave. So I'll live to enjoy the light of life. God does all these things to people. In fact, he does them again and again. He wants to stop people from going down into the darkness of the grave. Then the light of life will shine on them. Pay attention. Job, listen to me. Be quiet so I can speak. If you have anything to say, answer me. Speak up. I want to help you be cleared of all charges. But if you don't have anything to say, listen to me. Be quiet so I can teach you how to be wise.
That was interesting.
Elihu continued. Hear what I'm saying, you wise men. Listen to me, you who have learned so much. Your tongues tell us what tastes good and what doesn't. and our ears tell us what's true and what isn't. So let's choose for ourselves what is right. Let's learn together what is good. Job says, I'm not guilty of doing anything wrong, but God doesn't treat me fairly. Even though I'm right, he thinks I'm a liar. Even though I'm not guilty, his arrows give me wounds that can't be healed. Is there anyone like Job? He accuses God as easily as he drinks water. He's a companion of those who do evil. He spends his time with sinful people. He asks, what good is it to try to please God? So listen to
When did
me.
he say that? It might have been a long trip to get here with 3 different people speaking about this, that, and the other.
I think 2 things. So an exhaustive study would have us, which we're not going to do right now, would have us go back to what Job said. And
When he was whining,
yeah, one of the times when he was whining, it could have came up that he could have said, well, what good is it to please God since all of what I've done means nothing? I'm just worthless. So it's like, we don't have to go into,
but he's not cursing him.
no, he's not cursing.
Even though
He's just saying, what good is it to please God?
Kind of disrespectful to say, what good is it to try to please God?
Yeah,
Why are you even saying that?
right. Yeah. So, but Elihu is saying that's what Job said.
Okay.
And so listen to me, you men who have understanding. God would never do what is evil. The mighty one would never do what is wrong. He pays back everyone for what they've done. He gives them exactly what they should get. It is impossible for God to do wrong. The mighty one would never treat people unfairly. Who appointed him to rule over the earth? Who put him in charge of the whole world? If he really wanted to, he could hold back his spirit and breath. Then everyone would die together. They would return to dust. Job, if you have understanding, listen to me. Pay attention to what I'm saying. Can someone who hates to be fair govern? Will you bring charges against the holy and mighty God? He says to kings, you are worthless. He says to nobles, you are evil. He doesn't favor princes. He treats rich people and poor people the same. His hands create all of them. They die suddenly in the middle of the night. God strikes them down and they pass away. Even people who are mighty are removed, but not by human hands. His eyes see how people live. He watches every step they take. There is no deep shadow or total darkness where those who do what is evil can hide. God doesn't need to bring charges against anyone. He knows they are guilty. So he doesn't need to have them appear in his court to be judged. He destroys the mighty without asking them questions in court. Then he sets others up in their places. He knows what they do. So he crushes them during the night. He punishes them for the sins they commit. He does it where everyone can see them. That's because they turned away from following him. They didn't have respect for anything he does. They caused poor people to cry out to him. He heard the cries of those who were in need. But if he remains silent, who can judge him? If he turns his face away, who can see him? He rules over individual people and nations alike. He keeps those who are ungodly from ruling. He keeps them from laying traps for others. Someone might say to God, I'm guilty of sinning, but I won't do it anymore. Show me my sins that I am not aware of. If I've done what is wrong, I won't do it again. But you refuse to turn away from your sins. So God won't treat you the way you want to be treated. You must decide, Job. I can't do it for you. So tell me what you know. You men who have understanding have spoken. You wise men who hear me have said to me, Job doesn't know what he's talking about. The things he has said don't make any sense. I wish Job would be given the hardest test possible. He answered like someone who is evil. To his sin he adds even more sin. He claps his hands and makes fun of us. He multiplies his words against God. Job, do you think it's fair for you to say, I am the one who is right, not God? You ask him, what good is it for me not to sin? What do I get for not sinning? I'd like to reply to you and to your friends who are with you. Look up at the heavens, observe the clouds that are high above you. If you sin, what does that mean to God? If you sin many times, what does that do to him? If you do what is right, how does that help him? What does he get from you? The evil things you do only hurt people like yourself. The right things you do only help other human beings. People cry out when they are treated badly. They beg to be set free from the power of those who are over them. But no one says, "Where is the God who made me?" He gives us songs even during the night. He teaches us more than he teaches the wild animals. He makes us wiser than the birds in the sky. He doesn't answer sinful people when they cry out to him. That's because they are so proud. In fact, God doesn't listen to their empty cries. The Mighty One doesn't pay any attention to them. So he certainly won't listen to you. When you say you don't see him, he won't hear you. He won't listen when you state your case to him. He won't pay attention even if you wait for him. When you say his anger never punishes sin, he won't hear you. He won't listen when you say he doesn't pay any attention to evil. So you say things that don't mean anything. You use a lot of words, but you don't know what you are talking about. Some deep stuff. Some deep stuff. Thoughts? Put up with me a little longer. I'll show you I can speak up for God even more. I get my knowledge from far away. I'll announce that I'll announce that the God who made me is fair. You can be sure that my words are true. One who has perfect knowledge is talking to you. Wow, one who has perfect knowledge is talking to you. Okay. God is mighty, but he doesn't hate people. He's mighty, and he knows exactly what he's going to do. He doesn't keep alive those who are evil. Instead, he gives suffering people their rights. He watches over those who do what is right. He puts them on thrones as if they were kings. He honors them forever. But some people are held by chains. Their pain ties them up like ropes. God tells them what they've done. He tells them they become proud and sinned against him. He makes them listen when he corrects them. He commands them to turn away from the evil things they've done. If they obey him and serve him, they'll enjoy a long and happy life. Things will go well with them. But if they don't listen to him, they'll be killed by swords. They'll die because they didn't want to know anything about him. Those whose hearts are ungodly are always angry, even when God puts them in chains. They don't cry out for help. They die while they are still young. They die among the male prostitutes at the temples. But God saves suffering people while they suffer. He speaks to them while they are hurting. Job. He wants to take you out of the jaws of trouble. He wants to bring you to a wide and safe place. He likes to seat you at a table that is located with the best loaded with the best food. I don't know. Let me turn on the brightness because my eyes. I don't know why I'm changing in my head. He'd like to seat you at the best table that is loaded with the best food. But now you are loaded down with the punishment sinners will receive. You have been judged fairly. Be careful that no one tempts you with riches. Don't take money from people who want special favors, no matter how much it is. Can your wealth keep you out of trouble? Can all your mighty efforts keep you going? Don't wish for the night to come so you can drag people away from their homes. Be careful not to do what is evil. You seem to like evil better than suffering. God is honored because he is so powerful. There is no teacher equal to him. Who has told him what he can do? Who has said to him, "You have done what is right"? Remember to Who Who has said to him, you have done what is wrong? Remember to thank him for what he's done. People have praised him with their songs. Every human being has seen his work. People can see it from far away. How great God is. We'll never completely understand him. We'll never find out how long he has lived. He makes mist rise from the water, then it falls as rain into the streams. The clouds pour down their moisture. Rain showers fall on people everywhere. Who can understand how God spreads out the clouds? Who can explain how he thunders from his throne in heaven? See how he scatters his lightning around him? He lights up the deepest parts of the ocean. The rain he sends makes things grow for the nations. He provides them with plenty of food. He holds lightning bolts in his hands. He commands them to strike their marks. His thunder announces that a storm is coming. Even the cattle let us know it's approaching.
What did the cattle do? Run back to the pen? Run around in a circle?
Probably get anxious. I don't know.
I'm sorry. I don't know. Been around cattle.
Not farmers. No. This is the last one from him. When I hear the thunder, my heart pounds. It beats faster inside me. Listen. Listen to the roar of his voice. Listen to the thunder that comes from him. He sends his lightning across the sky. It reaches from one end of the earth to the other. Next comes the sound of his roaring thunder. He thunders with his majestic voice. When his voice fills the air, he doesn't hold anything back. God's voice thunders in wonderful ways. We'll never understand the great things he does. He says to the snow, fall on the earth. He tells the rain, pour down your mighty waters. He stops everyone from working. He wants them to see his work. The animals go inside. They remain in their dens. The storm comes out of its storeroom in the heavens. The cold comes from the driving winds. The breath of God produces ice. The shallow water freezes over. He loads the clouds with moisture. He scatters his lightning through them. He directs the clouds to circle above the surface of the whole earth. They do everything he commands them to do. He tells the clouds to punish people, or he brings them to water his earth and show his love. Job, listen to me. Stop and think about the wonderful things God does. Do you know how he controls the clouds? Do you understand how he makes his lightning flash? Do you know how the clouds stay up in the sky? Do you understand the wonders of the God who has perfect knowledge? Even your clothes are too hot for you. When the land lies quiet under the south wind. Can you help God spread out the skies? They are as hard as a mirror that's made out of bronze. Job, tell us what we should say to God. We can't prepare our case because our minds are dark. Should he be told that I want to speak? Should anyone ask to be destroyed by him? No one can look at the sun. It's too bright after the wind has swept the skies clean. Out of the north, God comes in his shining glory. He comes in all his wonderful majesty. We can't reach up to the mighty one. He is lifted high because of his power. Everything he does is fair and right, so he doesn't crush people. That's why we have respect for him. He cares about all those who are wise. The end of the friends, the end of Job. Verse 38, God speaks. The Lord speaks. The Lord. Takeaway from all these characters. All of them got some pride. All of them speak in certain areas with such an affirmative tone, an authoritative tone, that it's for all of them at one point or another, it seeps into some pride there. That's what, to me, my biggest takeaway from reading it. This time, I only read it one other time in my life, and I do not remember all of these, specific details. After God speaks, I always felt that God was pretty much telling Job. I always had, because when I read it, I believe it was the King James version. When I read it, I always had this feeling like what Job went through is because Job was prideful. But it was more so my thought of it being connected to I'm sacrificing for my kids' possible sins. Like, I know God will have to protect them because I'm doing this, That's how that was always my summary in my head for Job. But now after reading this, there's at least 1, 2, 3 specific chapters where Job is talking like straight up crazy, straight up unappreciative, disrespectful. He didn't curse God, no. So that never happened. But everything else is like, and even if
you complain about your life,
ungrateful because of the hardships. Now, hindsight being 2020, God speaks, clears up everything, and we know at the end, in summary, everything is restored to him, double from what he had. But on the way there,
how many chapters in the Lord speaks?
I think it's 2.
I'm getting gassy. I hope I didn't eat too much. I had a big salad for lunch. Just ate that food. 38 to 41.
Still going. Yeah, through 41, and Job repents in 42. So 4 chapters of God speaking, and He speaks to Job out of a storm. He speaks to Job out of a whirlwind. Wow. Kept asking, saying to God, why won't you answer me?
You have patience, but you're going to be answered in due time.
I almost feel like after the youngest one spoke, God speaking now is almost like, all right, Eliphaz, you ain't get it. You too prideful. You don't see what's going on. Bildad, you ain't get it. You too prideful. You don't see what's going on. Zophar, you ain't get it either. You too prideful. You don't see what's going on. Job, you ain't get it.
The last one.
And the last one too. I was gonna get to him. Elihu. Oh, you almost got it.
I'm thinking he's basically. He was the one that seemed to be the wisest.
In comprehension, yeah, but then he still mixed it with a little bit of I have no perfect knowledge. Like, let me let you know what I know, or listen to me. I got the wisdom that you need, essentially. And even though it's true,
maybe that's the saying that you can have youth that can be, wise from observing what's going down, and that could be possible. To tell you the truth, I'm afraid to go to the bathroom. I don't know if I stop here.
We're gonna stop here for today, and we'll finish up the last portion next week, just because of the season of everything. But yeah, so that's all 4 characters. So the last friend, it wasn't number 3, it was number 4, is the one who sounded right, is the one who made the most sense. As far as,
well, let's put it this way. I don't know about him with sores on his body, thinking of so many things that are going wrong, but to wish he were dead. And like I said, you said this is all before the 10 Commandments.
yeah.
makes one wonder, were there any prophets that he actually listened to, if there were any at the time, that should even get him to understand who the Lord is. If he were a rich person, it probably is a little different that he cares about the poor. Because so many, not that rich people can't. And it makes me wonder, do most people that care about the poor is because they came from being poor and became rich, and therefore can see the other side of the coin, as opposed to, I hate this, keep talking about this orange orangutan, Trump, being born with a silver spoon in his mouth, and he's never had.
Try to keep it on Job.
But I have to. My whole thing is, why am I reading this? Because Job is not here any longer. But I'm just explaining myself to you. Why am I reading this if I can't take some of this and apply it to today? Because if that's the case, history, I don't care to discuss a history that technically it's not repeating itself, because it was back in the day of Job.
Well, I think the common denominator of something that extends beyond time and history is the aspects of these characters of who they were. Like,
and if I see an analogy that day of
right, but that's why I said let's keep it on Job. Well, who you just brought up is not Job.
Excuse me.
It's not Job example.
Okay, but
maybe Obama is in your view, or maybe Michelle Obama, or maybe
I am not trying to. Like I said, I was talking about rich people that may not care about the poor, is what my statement was about. And an example is Trump. And he's the most, because I don't know a lot of billionaires, and I don't know a lot of millionaires, so I can't speak on all of them. I can only speak on one, and that's Trump.
But an accurate example would be someone who was poor, became rich, and cares about the poor, like Job.
I wasn't talking, but that's not necessarily what my whole point is. I was not talking about Job. I was talking about rich people who are born rich that don't care about the poor, and that's the example I was using.
But how does?
Excuse me one second.
Yeah.
Let me just talk. Sorry. Shani, I'm in Bible study still. Okay, I'll call you back. Love you. Bye. Now.
What I'm trying to understand is, I understand the point you're making. What I don't understand is how it relates or correlates to Job. Are you saying that Job was born rich, and so he's an exception to the rule that he cares about the poor? Because you're saying rich people born don't care. So are you assuming Job was born rich?
Okay, then I'm gonna tell you, I'm gonna assume that he was born wealthier than the poor. That's all I'm gonna say. Now, how rich or how poor, how much wealthier? He was wealthier than the poor. That's what I'm gonna say. Maybe if he was in a neighborhood and his dad had 25 goats and everybody else had one, that makes him richer.
But that's interesting, because I don't gather that from Job. I think what you're saying is accurate in the sense of, I think Job was actually probably came from low to nothing, and therefore he had a heart to care about the poor. The way he describes caring about the poor and choosing not to do maybe what he saw other people do, to me shows someone who has a correlation, because this is before the law, so there's nothing that tells him to be like that except experience or except wisdom to know that God, like even in here it says God created this person just as well as he created that person. I think Job said that. So he understands, like, his servants, right? He said that his servants, God made me and gave me breath and knitted me in my mother's womb just like he knitted that person in their mother's womb. So there's a connection there, a correlation. When
We're all human.
Right. So that, I don't gather to me that tells me he understands that side more than someone born with a spoon in their mouth and looks at other people like, well, why don't you got it? Because I got it and I'm good. Like the person you brought up. So that's why that's interesting.
I don't know why you're trying to think that I'm correlating that. All I'm saying is that even if and it would be interesting because you don't have very much history when you hear about, I'm going to say Job, There's no history to know whether he came from a line of people that were considered to be, wise, or considered to be doing better and having manservants and maids and that sort of thing, which definitely puts them higher than somebody poor. So, in that sense of saying that, I was saying that, that he probably, even though he was rich, he cared, because the air of most people who are rich is not to care, as opposed to, and I chose Trump as an example. Okay.
You think Bill Gates cares?
Yeah.
But he's rich.
He didn't have money like Trump had money. You keep missing my point.
I don't know.
He wasn't a billion. He didn't come from millions, multi-millions.
But he got it really early.
Hear me.
He
It's one thing
got in his 20s.
to be lucky to come up with something God gave you, and that turned into, he didn't see it was going to make him the billionaire he is today. And he wasn't that person. Trump was born into the hierarchy of the wealthy. That's the way he carries himself. That's the way he talks to people. That's the way he speaks to people. Okay? And that's my point. You do have people whose noses so high up in the air, they don't think their gas stinks. And the other one is that it don't stink. And that is Trump. And that person is not going to care about anybody that's lowly. Now, Joe probably could have been that person, because in certain circles, that's what they all do. That's what you do too. You don't stand out there and I'm not doing that. Come on in, maid, sit down next to me. Have some food. That's the maid. Why are you inviting her to the table to sit to eat? Yada, yada, yada. Okay, so, but that's my point. It seemed like Job was the type who stepped outside the norm. And it just made me wonder, how many people would have done that in his position. Obviously, to believe there's a God, I guess they all believe there's a God. I don't know. Some people might have believed that this urn is a higher power, or this cup, or whatever, as opposed to him knowing and believing, because he won't curse God. And I don't believe that the snake ever said, I'm here to just whether or not you're going to curse the Lord. So he wasn't warned, but he was given situations that weak-minded people would have said, God, why are you doing this to me? How dare you do this to me? Why you supposed to be God? You're a terrible God. Man, just saying that might be a curse. And he wouldn't do it. And the way he wanted to make it as fair as possible is to, so many other people would have given up and definitely accused me of everything that happened, because technically he did make it happen, and would not have looked at it as, you're testing me. It would have been like I thought, as much as I've, done for you and trying to do right by people, this is how you repay me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I'm sorry. I'm only going to bring it to nowadays, because other than that, why am I here in Bible study? I have no desire to know about the history of the Bible.
No, I'm not saying not to bring it to nowadays. I'm just saying, like, for it to be accurate, or for it to not get convoluted, it has to be it's better for it to be, not it has to be, but it's better for it to be a one-to-one example, because the conversation, when understood later, could be remembered as something other than what was said. And I think that happens a lot in Bible studies. Conversations may go on, and if the correlation doesn't fit, then the memory could repaint this passage or the scripture or the reading. And that's in the Bible study, or the person giving it, or the Bible. but just repaint what or who was what. Like that. That's why I said the reason why I said why'd you bring him up is because I understand the example, but he's not a one-to-one to Job, and that's why I said why we would bring him up, because what I hear, but you cleared that up for me. What I hear from Job is someone who, because to me, without the Bible, without scripture, without the law, which was where Job was, there's no reason for him to be this good. There's no reason for him to be this kind. There's no reason for him to be who, and this is old Job. We ain't talking about young Job, which they saying like he probably was wild, right? That's what it's alluding to. He was doing his sin when he was young, but he no longer did it when he got older. We ain't talking about that Job. We're talking about Job now. And that's another thing, like, all three of them are old. Eli, who was the youngest, they've all lived, had some years on this, on planet Earth, to see things, to experience things, to recognize things, to make decisions and fail, and make decisions and succeed, and see other people make decisions and fail. The three that were with him, Job said at one of the chapters, I didn't ask you guys for money. So to me, that tells me that those three are well off too. Maybe not as much as Job, or maybe more than Job. Whether or not they had enough that he could have told them, hey, can I help? Can you give me some help? He said in one of the chapters, I chose that I'm not going to ask you for help. I'm not asking for a pity party, essentially. He just don't know what's going on in him. And that stuck out to me because that told me the caliber of the individuals around him or at the table. Now, Elihu might be young and poor, or might be young and rich, or who knows, whoever this fourth person is. But without the law, without scripture, and without being without hearing a prophet, or they'll say nothing that a prophet came to them and spoke to them and told them how to live. They were living life in what they understood and what they believed was the right way to live, not to mistreat people, not to steal from people. Job is bringing up these things as far as him having no charge against him. What can God hold against me is essentially what he's saying. He got in that boastful chapter, one of the boastful chapters, he said, I want to stand before God and be tried, to prove that I've done nothing wrong. I don't think that could come from any place but experience. And if you're born with a spoon in your mouth, you don't have the experience, like you're bringing up, to care for people correctly. There's nothing in you that tells you what you're doing is wrong, because all you've known, and remember, this is without law, without scripture, without prophet, without nothing. There's nothing to tell you that what you're doing is wrong. There's nothing to tell you that you were born with more money than this person, steal their money. It's okay. There's nothing to tell you that's wrong to do. There's something to tell you that's wrong to do if it happened to you. And now you have a conscience that says, I have an opportunity to steal this next person's money because now I'm in a position to steal money. But I know it's wrong when it happened to me, so I'm not going to do it to my servant.
Just wise to know that they shouldn't do it.
I don't think that's possible. You're
just saying that Jesus wasn't a perfect God.
Jesus, what do you mean?
When Jesus was born, then Jesus being perfection, I'm not going to say that someone couldn't be born with 1/8 of the perfection of Jesus, and maybe can look at people as, that I would like people to do unto me, so therefore I will do unto them in return. It doesn't matter about their status. I'm not going to get hung up in the political bourgeoisie political ramifications of following the crowd. They're not going to be a crowd follower. They're going to be leading of themselves and maybe have a sensitivity towards other people to look at suffering and not think like, they're so stupid. How they get in that situation? When in fact, some of the laws that the rich might have made put them in that situation. They had no choice but to succumb to where they're at, hand to mouth, trying to pillage and look for food the best way they know how. So I'm not saying that can't happen, because obviously, possibly with Job, he might be one of those people who actually could see that, as they're doing good and they're being happy, they see the suffering of others. And it might have even just come across as like, I wonder how they feel, especially if somebody's mistreated when that's happening. When you think about, I gotta go down to mine. I know 12 Years a Slave, when the girl was dancing and the white lady hit her in the head.
I didn't see that movie.
You didn't see the movie?
Mm-mm.
Anyway, it was a slave that her husband was having, which what they did was his property, having sex with. White lady was jealous. And she's there dancing, because they would call them and say, oh, come and dance. So they were woken out of their sleep. They playing the music, making them dance, and they dancing. And the white lady throws like a big old vase and hits in the head and knocks her out. And the thing about it comes out of nowhere. I know black people, because I know I was like, wow, I was so angry. With the white lady, bam!
They got the reaction they wanted.
They definitely got the reaction. If you see it, to look at that and everything's happy, and out of nowhere comes this negativity. So, again, he could be that, he'd see that and see how unfair is that, even though he may not realize what's happening, but it's not like the slave girl was enticing the husband and seducing the husband. He told him, go out there and pick that cotton. That's what she was doing. He was going to get off when she can't say no. She might end up dead. So, sometimes there might be people who can look and see atrocities and realize where somebody over here is laughing at the situation. Others not feeling it's right. And not just because so I think, we're people who, and this is just getting on the character study of the rich, people will think of themselves as being better than anyone who doesn't have money, or the poor. Like, they're above them, which unfortunately probably is, because it's prideful. It's a downfall. It probably could be their downfall. It's having that pride and not realizing that, or not being sensitive that other people suffer.
Yeah.
Go sit down. Go sit. No, go watch that game.
The Lord spoke to Job in a storm.